Yes, good morning to everyone. I'm a Portuguese member of the European Economic and Social Committee. I represent the liberal professions and the regulated professions, the orders. And as we start very not in time, we have to be short and to take your time, most of all to listen to the people that participate in this public hearing. The subject of this first session is the role of smart islands as a tool to foster economic growth and employment. Nowadays, not only in Greece, in Portugal, in Ireland, Cyprus and so on, growth and employment are two key words for people, for economies, for politicians and so on. So it's a very important subject we are going to discuss. I don't keep some more time. I have with me Professor Godfrey Baldacchino from the University of Malta. I'll give Professor the floor, but just to say, I come as well from a country with some important islands, and they are very important for our actual economy and the sustainability of the country as a whole. But they were very important for Portuguese people to discover the world. If we didn't knew Madeira, Azores, Cabo Verde and so on, of course Vasco da Gama, Pedro Álvares Cabral and the others didn't arrive to America, to India, to Brazil and so on. Professor, you have the floor if you please.
Obrigado. Good morning everyone. I've been told I have 7 minutes. It's taken me 5 flights to get here, so I must have broken the record. 3 of which on the same plane, by the way. I'm sure some of you have similar experiences. Isn't it funny that when we travel from one island to the other, we usually go through a mainland? Isn't that true? And I think that intellectually we do the same thing. When we try to look at islands, we usually start off from a continental perspective. And we hope and we think that the island is just a microcosm. It's just a small version of the big thing. Crete is a small version of Greece. Corsica is a small version of France, etc., etc. It's not true. Even though, of course, we think that we deserve equal opportunities for the people of our islands, for our citizens, for our brothers and sisters, etc. But we get to those equal opportunities in different ways. The ways are different. And in the remaining 6 minutes, I will try to tell you something about how various islands are doing that. By the way, you will notice that I also put on the board the emblem of ISISA, the International Small Island Studies Association. There is an organization that groups professors, scholars, researchers from around the world who are interested in studying islands on their own terms. And I happen to be the president of this organization. So I look forward, perhaps following in the wake of Pascal Paoli, looking forward to a stronger synergy between policymakers, business people like yourselves, etc., with the academic world. Okay. Of course, one of the common problems of islands is that they get lost in national statistics. This is a photo of a country, even though Malta, of course, is even smaller than Corfu. It is a country. We call it Malta, but Malta is also the name of the big island. It's very easy to speak about Malta generally. Right now we have an unemployment level which is 6%. It's growing at 2% per annum. It will reach 500,000 people very soon. It's probably one of the most densely populated islands, certainly in Europe. But of course, in using that kind of statistics, we forget about Gojo, the smaller island lost in the mist, as you can see, even in a policy sense, perhaps, not just in a geographical sense, right? I'm sure you share this predicament. Sometimes people say there's nothing more practical than a good theory. There are lots of interesting theories about islands, how islands develop. The general consensus today is that there are three broad models. One representing an island that lives on transfers, be they public transfers or individual transfers, remittances. A second type of model is one where the island's economy depends considerably on tourism. And the third model, which is called the profit model, is one where the island depends on attracting the right kind of people, managing its resources effectively, particularly its natural resources, looking at its ability to provide financial services, and engaging in overseas representation, what we call para-diplomacy. And finally, of course, the all-crucial accessibility question, transportation. Absolutely key, sea and air transportation. Those are the three main models of island development. And we can represent island economies in this way. We can look at the first model, the one that has characterized the growth, the existence of many islands for many years, and then we come up with tourism as possibly a transitional period of development, and then we end up with what we call the niche products, about which I'm going to talk about later in this presentation. So I'm going to start with examples of manufactured products from small islands, some of which are in Europe, some of which are from outside Europe. You will notice that the more successful ones are the ones that try to build a brand recognition that rides on the brand of the island itself. This is very important. These products are successful only insofar as they consolidate the image, the reputation of the island from which they emerge. The examples include cod liver oil from Iceland, for example, rum from Barbados, the Faroe Islands, which produces 20%, which is now the fifth largest producer of aquaculture salmon in the world, for a population of 45,000 people. It's phenomenal. Breweries are also very important on small islands. Usually the largest locally owned manufacturing concern on an island is a local brewery. Fair Isle knitting from Fair Isle in Shetland, and a little Greek example down there, mastika from Chios, of course. One of the well-branded products of the Greek islands. Tourism, of course, is another important area, but many islands have specialized in this economy. It's not enough just to be a tourist destination, it's a mature market. And like all mature markets, it's important to be able to project and forecast the next trend, the next wave. You do that by specializing within tourism. And these are examples of how various islands have tried to capitalize on particular niches in the tourism industry. I start with Samsø in Denmark, because Samsø has become very famous for being a green island, actually becoming a carbon negative island. And that generates its own particular type of tourists, right? Because people want to go and visit and see how the people of Samsø do what they do. Barbados specializes in medical tourism. Jamaica, of course, is famous for certain types of music, as you know. Saint Barthélemy or Îles Caraïbes, l'île Français, specializing in 5-star tourism. You cannot be a visitor to Saint Barthélemy without being very rich.
2 minutes, please, if you can.
Carnival tourism in the Bahamas, casino tourism in Macau, wedding honeymoon tourism in the Indian Ocean in Maldives, and of course, Malta has a number of specializations, including scuba diving and English language teaching. Another set of products, but these are now intangibles. When we speak about intangibles, of course, we remove the handicap of isolation. So here, islands can practically compete almost on an equal footing with other destinations. They don't start off with a disadvantage. You will notice, for example, that places like Tuvalu have capitalized on their ability to sell or to rent their high-level domain, .tv, for television companies. Bermuda is the world capital for reinsurance. Jersey and the Channel Islands has has a reputation for private wealth management. Malta has, within the European Union, probably the most friendly legislation for electronic gaming. 6,000 jobs in Malta depend on the sector. Iceland is the world capital for cloud computing, for hosting the servers that have to do with the, the cloud revolution. And of course, it's very easy to think why. It's a cold island. You don't need coolers to cool the servers. Plus, geothermal energy is very, very cheap. Cyprus, like Greece, has a flag registry. And Crete, I was pleased to find out, is recognized around the world for a certain type of eye surgery, which has become very, very important. My last slide. For all these things to happen, you don't need only smart people, you also need smart governments. I think it's very important to consider that these economic developments on Ireland don't just happen, they need a favorable regime, favorable legislation to enable them to happen. Those niches, those opportunities, usually they're identified by business people, but then they have to act quick in conjunction with the policymakers to make them happen. And that's why local expertise, local jurisdictional capacity is, I think, extremely important. The synergies, of course, are also very important. It's useful to develop a product, but then as much as possible, try to build on other available products, services available on the island in order to enhance local value added. It is the value chain that we are interested in. And finally, as I've already said, brand consolidation is extremely important in order to make sure that what you are trying to promote does not jar, does not clash with other existing images out there. Brands are extremely difficult to produce. When they exist, they become very difficult to change. If you have a good brand, you have a good reputation, ride on it, build on your strengths. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I'm sorry for my